All right, listen up one more time. We are back with another episode of the Construction Mentor Podcast. My name is Ike. I am your host. You can catch this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. You can catch me on Instagram or TikTok at the Construction Mentor. What are we here to do? We're here to promote the construction industry for opportunities that will lead people to a life of affluence. A lot of people are unaware of the opportunities in the industry and the lifestyle that they can live. It is not all boots and jeans. You can go into the office. You can be your own entrepreneur. And today we have a new trade that we haven't had on the podcast before, an entrepreneur in her own right. And her path to the seat that she has now is super interesting, a little sad, but it's one that I think that everybody can benefit from. Today we have Hannah Vogel from Vogel Roofing down in Southwest Florida. Hannah, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
So, Hannah, I'm going to jump right into this. And I was just telling you that I was going through your Instagram. Now, when you look at Hannah, Hannah is an attractive 20-something, young woman in the construction industry. And you look at her Instagram and she's at the beach with her friends, or she's on boats, or she's out to dinner. She's doing all the things that most, women in their 20s do. And the last thing that many people would expect you to do for a profession is a roofer, right? Can you talk? So can you talk about what that's like being somebody? I mean, because your friends must look at you like and not really understand, what you're doing. I'm guessing they're not in the industry, right? So what's that like being a woman in her 20s running a roofing company?
It's really interesting. I guess that's the best word I can think of to describe it. But it was different in the beginning because I had people, they're very skeptical, especially even people in my family. They were just like, this is silly. I was going to go to law school. I have some lawyers in my family. And I worked in the industry for a little bit through college. I just realized like this is not for me. I don't want to be trapped in an office.
In the law
And then
industry, you were
yeah, in the
working
legal
like in law
industry.
offices. Okay.
Yeah, so I was like a paralegal, doing that kind of admin work. And long and short, one of my buddies, he was an engineer and he wanted me to do marketing for his company. And I started doing that, and he was like, "This is awesome. Like, if we can market this roofing company right, we can be better than these roofers who have been around, for years in the area." So I partnered up with him, and but when I was doing that, and I was trying to explain to my friends and family, that's what I was going to do, they just thought I was nuts. They were like, "Why are you going into roofing? Like, you don't know anything about roofing. You're a girl. Like, why are you doing this? Like, it's not going to work." So in the beginning, there's a lot of like skepticism. And then, once the company actually kind of started taking off, I think people were more receptive to it. So it's kind of tricky. It's a little discouraging being an entrepreneur, because you have to
Mhm.
believe in yourself so much, even when people are questioning you or saying like, "I don't think this is going to work." You still have to just like power through and go after it. So now I think the people who know me, they think it's really cool. I think it makes me really happy. My friends are really proud of me, and they're always, saying good job, and it's like very cool trying to get women into the industry. So now it's a little bit better, but in the beginning I got a little bit of criticism, not gonna
So
lie.
it's interesting because our friends and family are supposed to be the people that encourage us, right? That push us towards
Sure.
good things. And when we have a dream or an opportunity, we want to, we want the support to take advantage of those things. But oftentimes, like I've had in my life, sometimes it's the people that are closest to you that give you the worst advice, right? Or the worst
Yes.
feedback. And you got to be cautious about that because I think it comes from a good place. Like they want to protect you. You know what I mean? But, and it's a coincidence that it's Women in Construction like week and month. This is totally a
Yes,
coincidence
this
that
was
you're on.
great timing.
Yeah. So, it's funny because I didn't realize that, your family and the people close to you gave you that feedback, but there is a post that you shared, and I'm going to share it with things that people say to you as a female roofer. And I'm just going to read a couple of them, and then I want your feedback on how you react to these things, maybe at first compared to now that you've been in the industry for a couple of years. Can you give me a discount, cutie? Do you know anything? Which that's quite insulting. Can I speak with your husband? You're too cute to be a roofer. And then my favorite, is this your dad's business? So what was it like at first to hear those types of things? How do you take it now?
Oh, it was rough. I mean, I was very in college, or when I started this, I was just getting out of college and I was fairly timid. And in the roofing industry, at least, I don't know if this is like with most trades, but a lot of like one of the main sources of getting work is door knocking.
Mhm.
So my buddy and I, we would just go knock doors and try to hand out pamphlets and introduce ourselves. And that itself, even for men, even for some of my sales guys, that's kind of like a learning curve because,
Mhm.
you're opening yourself up to so much rejection. So being a woman on top of it, it was definitely discouraging at first. I definitely was like, shit, am I doing the right thing? Like, is this even gonna work? Like, people don't trust me. You know what I mean? But so when I was younger too, it definitely kind of deterred me a bit. But like you said earlier, like if you use those things, like and like learn from them and use them to your advantage, you can actually get better results. Usually I can like turn people's opinions, especially men, when they're like, oh, is this your husband's company or does your
Mhm.
dad own this or something? But with that, you have to know what you're talking about and you have to prove to them, you're capable and all that good stuff. So
So there's two things that I'd like to know about. Number one, going door to door. Do you keep track of your hit rate? Because a lot of people I talk to want to start their own business, and they don't understand. Rejection's really hard for a lot of people, right?
yes.
Now, I would imagine that it's lower than a batting average in baseball. Like it's probably if you go to 10 houses, maybe one. Like, what's your hit rate or success rate going door to door?
I mean, right now we don't really do much door knocking now. That was more in the
Mhm.
beginning when we were getting the company going. But I would say, for every maybe 5 houses, we would get one that would sign
Oh
up with
wow,
us.
that's pretty good.
So maybe 5 to 8. But the best part is once we got that one homeowner to sign up with us, they'd tell their neighbors, especially after they saw like we were doing a good job, and then we could
Hmm.
secure the neighborhood. I mean, the best time to door knock, I think, is when you're putting a roof on, you know.
Hmm.
And another thing too we learned is not to go to the neighbors and directly say like, you know, can we inspect your roof? We're doing your neighbors going over there and just like introducing yourself and saying like, hey, like there's gonna be some noise, like next couple
Mm.
days, if there's trash in your yard, give us a call. We'll take care of it. So we learned like some different strategies about, the door knocking and how to
That
scoop
is
up your
great. That
clients.
is great advice, right? Because nobody wants to feel like they have like the greasy salesperson coming at them, and like spamming
Exactly.
everybody, right? You're showing common courtesy there. And I think it's also a great way to segue into your expertise, right? To get people to trust you. So that is very, very interesting.
And another thing too, oh, sorry to cut you off, but
No, go
women,
ahead.
I tell women this too. Like I never suggest or even allow like women salespeople like on my team to go door knocking by themselves. I usually take someone
Mhm.
with you just for safety reasons. But I found that homeowners are actually more receptive to opening the door, for a woman instead of, a guy, a strange man, or
Sure.
like a couple guys at their door. You know what I mean? So there's just like little things that you know, that are helpful.
I mean, I can tell you as a guy, with a with a wife at home, when somebody knocks at my door and I'm not home and it comes up in my ring, I'm like, what the hell's going on? You
Oh,
know what
yeah,
I
I'm sure you panic. You're like, "What is
mean?
this?"
I mean, I'm not there, right? So, that's a very interesting point. Now, take a and that's really good sales advice. I can't tell you how many people reach out to me that want to start small service companies and they don't understand or know the best way, to approach people. So when it comes to taking over the neighborhood, are you offering referrals? Like, do people get like referral discounts, or do you do anything to enhance, the word of mouth travel through a neighborhood after you do get
A
that first
little
roof?
bit. So we used to, but you've been in Florida with, the construction industry and the laws are always changing about,
Hmm.
what roofers can and can't say or do. So we do like a referral program, but like we do have to be careful, especially with insurance work. Like we can't give out incentives, to
Mm.
if they have a pending insurance claim to like tell their neighbors about us. We can't do that. But if it's retail work, we could offer like a small discount or referral fee. We get creative with like gift baskets and things like that. So
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. You don't want to cross any line, any kind of blurred line with the government or anything like that, or doing anything greasy, as they say.
exactly.
So take a step back, because you have, you have some tremendous experience and tremendous advice. And I know that you didn't have this on your radar as a career path as a young woman. What were you like in high school going into college? I mean, was it just you wanted to be a lawyer because that sounded good? What was life like for you there, and looking into the future? What was your thought process?
High school and college, I actually I loved politics. Like that was just
Mm-hmm.
my jam. I was such a nerd with like history and politics, and I didn't know a career path that would suit that other than, what my teachers and were telling me, like, if you're interested in that, most people go to law school because you can't really do much with that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was pretty set on the legal field in some capacity, but I had a lot of interest in owning my business though, or owning a business one day because my dad started a business. My grandpa, he was kind of a serial entrepreneur down here, and I saw like the freedom they had, and I was like, I kind of wanted to do something for myself, build my own thing instead of working
Mm-hmm.
for another person. So, I mean, granted, they worked their asses off. It was a lot, but
Right. Now, I think a lot of young women, they see becoming a lawyer or an entrepreneur, or a lot of them look at the medical field as a viable path, but they don't really know. What would you say to a young woman who's looking at college, or looking at maybe doesn't want to go to college, but wants to be successful or own their own business? What advice would you give them, or what would you say to them about the construction industry?
I would try to see where their interest lies first, like what they're initially trying to do. Um, you know, if they're trying to go into like the medical field, it's kind of like tricky to like kind of convince them to come join the construction field. But if they're going into the legal field or marketing or some administration job or something like that, that's a little bit easier for me to, not convince them, but kind of educate them that like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
have you thought of this? This would be, suitable, you know, based on your strengths and what you want to do. This is another avenue. Um, and I don't, it's hard because I like educating people and telling people, about the money side of it, but I don't want to encourage people only because of the money,
Mm-hmm.
because construction is very taxing at times, mentally and physically for some people. So I also try to shine a light on the other aspects of it too.
So now I assume that because you said that it's when you describe to me your career path, it doesn't sound like you've actually installed a roof yourself. Have you ever installed a roof yourself?
Seen it. I mean, I'm not to be honest, I mean, I've put flashing on, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. I've like helped, but
Right.
just me one woman show. No, I haven't like.
Okay. Now again, and I'm a GC, right? I've built a high school out of the ground, but did I do 99% of the trades that are on there? No, I haven't, right? But
I
technically,
just have to clarify that with people because even some older people, they're like, you do the roofs like every day you go
yeah.
out there and like you're hammering the nails in the roof. And I'm like, not exactly like so.
So it's not physically taxing on you, building this company, but it is mentally taxing. And obviously, we can talk about the money that and the revenue that you've been able to generate. But what is the mental tax like? Is it from trying to generate revenue? Is it more about management? Is it the legal hat that you have to put on sometimes with trying to get yourself through difficult situations or confrontational situations with a job that maybe went wrong, or maybe it's a client that's trying to screw you? Like, where does the mental tax come from? All of the above.
I was literally just gonna say a combination of all those things because it's just like How I sum up entrepreneurship is like each day is having either the best day of your life or the worst day of your life. It can be so fun and exciting when everything's going well, but then the next day, maybe a crew doesn't show up and it delays a
Mhm.
project, or, a law changes in Florida with subcontractors and workman's comp and all that good stuff. Making payroll can be really tricky. There were times, when we were getting started where we weren't making any money. It's
Mhm.
just your business is kind of like a money pit, and you just have to keep feeding it so it keeps growing until you can catch up. And then with insurance work, that's kind of tricky too, because sometimes you're waiting on money for months and months.
Cash flow kills you.
So yeah, cash flow it can be horrendous for contractors. I mean, and I think in all the trades, I think that's probably one of the most common problems is cash flow is very difficult. It's like you have a ton of money and then you don't have any money. You have a ton of money, you know what I mean? For a while, it's just there's no stability really. So, at least in the beginning. So that's an issue. Finding good people to work for you, that's very hard. I mean, I have a small team. There's only 6 of us, including our salespeople.
Mhm.
And we have 3 of the same crews, but I do that because it's like I know what I'm getting out of it and I know what I'm going to
Sure.
give the clients. So I keep a small team because it's just extremely difficult finding good, reliable people that you
So,
can
so,
trust.
so you go through high school and then college, right? And you decide that, maybe law is or isn't for you based on your experience. And then somebody approaches you with, hey, viable business, profitable business. Let's go in it together. You go in 50-50. And where I want to go with this is, those are everything that you just highlighted. No matter what business you go into, you're going to run into those things, right? But I think anybody who has any kind of a success story has overcome a massive unforeseen obstacle. It is not all green lights and rainbows, right? It's not what is going to happen. It is when the shit is going to hit the fan and what you do about it, how you react. So you started the business and it sounds like you were subcontracting out crews. This is like 2018, 2019, and you're pouring a bunch of money into it. And you don't know what crews are good, what crews are bad. And then tragedy strikes, right? So can you talk about what happened? And I imagine this is right when you guys started to take off, right? So what happened and how'd you get through it?
Yeah, so my partner James, who is a good friend of mine, he's the one who I started it with, and year one was really tricky. That's when we were just trying to keep it alive, dumping money into it, door knocking, um, living very frugally so we could just keep it going. And then second year, we started getting our momentum, our client base, we're getting a ton of referrals, and we were just like rocking and rolling. We had it our systems figured out. We had a good team. And then he passed away in a car accident about a month before Hurricane Ian in 2022. So that just completely, um, turned my world upside down. And, from a personal standpoint, it was horrible because he was a good friend of mine. And anyone in business with a business partner knows, like, you have to be in constant communication. I mean, we talked every
Mm-hmm.
single day. So it's like I was dealing with losing a friend. And then, on the business side, there were things that he was doing all the time that I didn't know how to do yet. Permitting, things like that. So, it was very tricky. And, I had to start a new business because it was a partnership. So I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't continue the partnership. So I had to wind that business out, start a new one, and continue on. But that was probably the one time where I was like, I'm done with this. Like, I'm not going to keep doing it. You know what I mean?
What made you want to go forward? Because, first of all, like you said, you had a personal loss, right? But business aside, that was a good friend of yours. And then most businesses have a two-headed monster, right? Like there's Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. There's any business you look at, it's like a two-headed monster. So it was like your right arm got cut off and you lost somebody that was doing those things. So what made you push forward and how'd you fill that gap? Are you a one-woman show or did you find another partner? What happened?
So basically, I think what really encouraged me to keep going is, you know, I looked back on like when we first started, and it's like I have such good memories. Like the first roof we signed up, like I still remember the client and everything. And, you know, as soon as we got it, I think we knocked probably 30 doors, to get that first client. And like we were high-fiving each other and like we were
Mhm.
like little kids, like we were so excited. And, even the first year, I mean, we didn't do much in revenue, but I remember we paid ourselves each like 50 grand, and we're
Mhm.
like, "Oh my gosh, like we made $50,000? Like that is just that's wild." Like for me out of
Yeah.
college, I was like, I'm working for myself and I made 50 grand. Like, and we were just like, you know, it, it's like something we built together and we were so proud
Mhm.
of. And he was extremely loyal to me and he taught me so much. And we built this small team together also. And I just felt like that would be a disservice to him to throw the towel in.
Mm. And did you
So
bring some of the same sales staff? Like, did the crews, were they skeptical about sticking with you? Because, so just so everyone knows, I think it's uncommon in other areas of the country, but in Southwest Florida, very common to subcontract your labor and your manpower. So there's basically, crews of 5 to 10 guys or 4 to 10 guys or women that um, that you sub out, for your work. So Vogel, technically, like on paper, is probably your office staff and your management and sales, right? And then your crews. So did you bring the office staff with you? Did you have to sell them, and did you have to sell the crews to stick with you?
really, I mean, and that was the thing. That's what I try to educate people on too, if they're getting in the construction industry, is like something that is so important is like take care of your crews and your employees before you take care of yourself. Um, because if you do that, they will be loyal to you, you know,
Right.
for the end of time. So, no, I didn't. We kept the same crews, same staff. I didn't really have to sell people too much on like hanging on board.
It was just a
But I
logo
did bring
change.
it. Yeah, it was just a name change. I mean, we were Vogel Construction, and we were
Hmm.
thinking about doing Vogel Roofing also because, we dabbled into interiors and things like that, but we decided to stick with our crafts, roofing.
Now, so what was your revenue like right before that happened? What did you guys get it up to?
Right before I think so. First year we did about 450, almost 500. Next year we doubled, and then um towards the beginning of the third year, we're almost at 2 million. So we had a really
Wow.
steady
Okay. Growth.
climb. So
So not only, did you get through tragedy, and you did so short-handed, but little did we know we were about to get hit with the biggest hurricane that's, happened in human history here in Southwest Florida, which with that is a wave of demand for roofers, probably more than anybody. What was that like? Did it help? Did it hurt? Uh, was insurance claims killing you? Like, what was that challenge like? And we're talking, just so everyone knows, we're talking about
if
Hurricane Ian. Hurricane Ian was a shit show, massive storm that wasn't supposed to hit us at the last second, and is the worst thing that anybody's seen in like 500 years, and will probably see again for another 500 years. So, uh, not only again was Hannah shorthanded, but she had a massive demand coming at her, in a huge wave, real quick.
that was I have so many mixed emotions. I mean, I know it's kind of common for roofers, especially to be like, hope for hurricanes and things like that because it does increase revenue tremendously. But honestly, I would be fine not going through something like that again. With James passing away so close to that time, it was a nightmare because I had to get my license reinstated
Mhm.
because we shared the license together. I had to start the new company because I couldn't keep that company active because it was a partnership. So for tax reasons, you can't be like a sole owner in a
Mhm.
partnership. So I had to, work on getting that company wound out, start a new one, deal with my new license, and then I have to get registered in each county. And this was all while the hurricane was going on. So it was definitely stressful. And then another thing, my sales guys couldn't sign up jobs until I had that all, I was new registered and had everything in order. So there was a couple weeks I just paid them out of pocket, just like hoping, like, please stay on board. I
Wow.
promise I'll make it worth your while. So, so that was tremendously stressful, but I mean, it did help. I'm very grateful, for like the financial part of it. But it's also really hard. Like, I'm from Naples, like I was born here and it's like
Mhm.
my home. And it's hard seeing people go through that. I mean, clients like calling you crying because they like literally lost their homes, their pets, family members. Like it was really terrible. So
Now, were you handling insurance claims? Were people throwing private money out there so that they didn't have to wait and just get it done? What was that like?
well, it's interesting because we used to do year one, we did a lot of insurance work, and then the legislation and policy holder, like insurance companies kind of changed the game a bit. And I think they also made homeowners weary about filing insurance claims.
Hmm.
Because how that is. It's, a corrupt industry, like politicians and insurance companies. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
you know,
They've put us in, whether it's the medical industry or any industry, they've weaved us into quite a web.
exactly. So it's like, it was easier to do that with clients in the beginning, but once new laws changed and everything, and then with the hurricane, and then people started to say, like, I feel like I'm taking advantage of my insurance company, or if I'm going to get in trouble, they're going to drop me. And, it's true. Like, some people, like, I had like a client who was a little old lady. She was with State Farm for 40 years. She made a claim on her roof and they dropped her. And so the insurance market is just very strange right now. So
Mhm.
we mainly do retail. So especially after the hurricane, people just wanted to get it done. So we would give them retail prices and then they just dealt with their insurance on the back end. I mean, roofers don't make as much money typically doing it that way, but I think it's better
What
for
do you mean by
everyone.
retail and then them doing it on the back end?
Meaning like, if a homeowner calls us, it's after a storm,
Hmm.
they need a roof, instead of waiting for the claim process or doing like a contingency agreement where, we do the roof for what the insurance pays. And that way they don't have to come out of pocket immediately and we'll start the roof. Um, Rather than doing that, they're like, maybe we'll give them a bid for a couple grand less than maybe the insurance will pay, and we'll just get the
Okay,
roof done for them.
gotcha. Okay. Well, I'm sure they appreciate that. And I'm sure.
I mean, and after a hurricane, I just don't I get a bad taste from some of these contractors that like push that on homeowners.
Mhm.
It can be kind of slimy, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, karma's going to come their way, right? I mean,
Exactly. That's
this.
true.
I think one of the book covers over my shoulder is Conscious Capitalism from John Mackey, the CEO of Whole Foods, which people have their thoughts about how he runs his business. But one of the things that he talks about is not taking advantage of people just because you can, right? You want to create a winning situation for everybody, your employees, your end client, yourself, the manufacturers, everybody, right? Because that's what makes a long-lasting business and a successful one. And it's good to hear that you're not out there screwing people, because there were a lot of people that were playing the situation to their advantage. I can tell you, at the time I was working for a general contractor down here, and there was a lot of gouging going on and a lot of money being made by a lot of people, particularly the demo guys and the drywall guys. So you come out of that, you got a little boost once you had this tremendous obstacle in front of you, right? But with what happened with losing your partner, and then you had a tidal wave to get over with the hurricane, you got through it. Now you're on the other side, and I think any motivational video or anything that you'd read from the Bible even would tell you that through great moments of great pressure comes great reward. And it's been a year and a half since Hurricane Ian. What's business been like since then? How's Vogel Roofing doing? Are you still on that upward trajectory?
It's going great. The first probably 6 months after the hurricane, it was really, really difficult, especially to keep like morale high because, hurricanes are extremely depressing. And even though we were making money, it's just not a good environment. It
Mhm.
was a tragedy for everyone down here. So now that we're out of that, we're still busy with retail work. Some people, still have damage from the hurricane that they finally are getting settled with their insurance. So we're still staying busy. I think word of mouth has been the biggest helper with us for getting new clients. Referrals are great. I always encourage new contractors to really like invest in like some kind of referral program or just keeping in touch with your clients even after you do the roofs.
Mhm.
So we've been staying busy. I have a good team. I think just slowly adding people in. I mean, I don't want to, another thing too is like growing too quick is
Right.
something to be cautious about that I don't think people think about because I had an issue with that after the hurricane. We had this tremendous growth, and sometimes um, that's not always beneficial to grow that fast, that soon.
Right. I mean, I always say, I could do 3 or 4 projects A plus, or I could do 10 B minus. Right.
Exactly.
We all have so much bandwidth, and a lot of my guests that I've had on, a lot of them talk about not growing necessarily in volume, but increasing efficiencies and growing profit. So, what has it been like now? You're at about 4 million a year.
Yes. Yep. Just
Okay,
hit
so that's
four.
and that's a lot for the amount of people that you got. So, from say 2 million a couple years ago in 2022 to about 4 million now. How have you just been adding on a person every few months? Are they project management, estimating? Who are you adding while you grow?
The biggest investment I made was office staff. I
Mhm.
think that gets overlooked a lot in construction because especially like some of these guys, they think like, okay, we can do it all ourselves. It's just some paperwork, but like organization is key in roofing and I think any kind of construction. So if you can invest and pay more, than market average for a good office manager or administrator, whatever you want to call it, that's a complete game changer. So that and, a really good bookkeeper, um, those
Mm.
are people who I spent like more money on than I thought I would, but it it always pays off if you do that.
So you're
Um,
paying a premium to let the engine run smoothly, but also probably give you a peace of mind, right? Like
exactly. Because
you
those
don't
are
want to put.
important things. I mean, I was doing the books when I was partnered with James. I was doing the books by myself, but granted, we were only doing. I mean, that first year we only did a few hundred grand in revenue, so it wasn't as difficult, but
Mhm.
um,
Now, are you invested in a software? Do you have a project management or accounting software? What do you use to run Vogel?
we use
What's it?
And Excel.
Job Nimbus and Excel. Okay. I haven't used Job Nimbus before. People just always ask. I get DMs all the time just asking for advice. So do you use that to run projects, to price projects? What do you use Job Nimbus for?
Everything. So it has a lot of capabilities and lots of different codes, so you can customize it to your business. So the idea is for the field and the office and sales to all communicate with each other through that CRM. So you can upload all the photos, client contracts, documents, COIs, and then you can also like message each other on the app on your phone or computer when a dry-in's done or we need something scheduled. So I'm a big fan of Job Nimbus.
Good.
So
Good. Um, Now, when you're talking about prospecting clients, this just popped in my mind, so I apologize for jumping around a little bit. But are
no,
your
you're good.
salespeople going for direct to homeowners, or are you doing any work for GCs, commercial versus
So we
residential? Like, what's your workload like?
we've kind of like we kind of go through different seasons where we go directly to homeowners, or we work with GCs, especially right now because new construction's so hot in Southwest Florida right now.
Mhm.
GCs are great, but what we like to do also is like build relationships with community partners is what we call it. So even people who like aren't necessarily in our industry, we like to partner
Mhm.
up with, refer them work. I had this one lady who's in interior design. company. And, not directly correlated with roofing, but she ended up being a huge referral source. So,
Really? Wow.
people like that, realtors are great. Um, I don't know. And that's kind of like what I like about the business. That's kind of my role, is going out in the community and, trying to build relationships with people.
Is there a
So,
difference in cash flow when you go with a GC versus directly with a homeowner?
yeah, usually it's a little bit, cheap, or not cheaper, but our prices are lower with a GC typically, because usually they, like, down here, I don't know how it is where you are, but these GCs, they want to give like like a bundle of roofs or something like that,
Yeah,
bring
at
the
a cut
cost down.
at a cut percentage. Yeah,
So
like I'll give you these 5 roofs if you cut 5% off or whatever the number is.
exactly.
Yeah, that's a common strategy for GCs, especially if they're in a lump sum situation. Now, I'm in the commercial world, so we have the ability to do that, right? So if I have 5 clients that give me all lump sum contracts, that enables me to turn around and create efficiencies in my contracts with my subs. So that is when I have the ability to basically release, hey, roofer, I'll give you these 5 jobs if you give me a couple points off, and then I get to pocket that. Whereas if my contract with my owner as a GC is what's called GMP, or basically a transparent bid, they see every single cost and I only make a fixed percentage, and any savings they, for the most part, keep. That's me oversimplifying the
Oh,
situation.
interesting.
Yeah, so that's me oversimplifying the situation. Now that's in the commercial world. In the residential world, which, are you only doing residential or are you doing any commercial?
Right now, we're just doing residential.
Okay.
I want to get it. We're slowly kind of dabbling into some commercial bids, some smaller ones. But with the team I have and the size I am, I'm just more comfortable doing residential. I know, and right now in our area, like, it's kind of like a bloodbath to get into commercial projects.
Yeah.
Same with like repairs. Roofers don't want to do repairs. They don't really want to do residential. So there's like a huge market of that, like low hanging fruit that,
And,
we
when it
like
comes
to
to
go
cash
for.
flow, whether it's a GC or a homeowner, is it weekly billing, biweekly, monthly?
It kind of depends. So like with tile, we do thirds. So, like when they sign up, they do the first third. And then when the materials drop, we get the second one. And then when the final inspection's completed, we get the last one.
Gotcha.
Um, so,
So that's
but it is
critical.
tricky.
A lot of people
Yeah,
don't think about that, right?
no, they don't. And we used to do 50-50 for like,
Mhm.
especially like smaller shingle jobs. But the problem with that, and you really have to make sure your contracts are like really iron tight, because let's say, and you know how this is in construction, something's going to go wrong. Even if you have a project manager the whole time, something's still going to happen. A
Mhm.
paver is going to get chipped on the driveway. Maybe a gutter is going to get dented. So a problem we were running into is like, maybe one of my guys put the ladder on a gutter, dented the gutter, and the roof's finished, but then the homeowner's like, well, that dented gutter, like, it needs to be fixed. And of course we'll fix it, but they hold back. They want to
Mhm.
hold back the whole second half payment for a dented gutter, which a few
Yeah.
$100, which I understand, like, hold back money, but that was a problem because, every so often we'd get trapped in these jobs, and you know how it is, like checking accounts receivable, like you're going out fronting projects and it adds up. So that's
Yeah, I
another
think
thing I thought of, like,
a
good
lot of
advice
people
for contractors.
get themselves in trouble without understanding cash flow, especially when they want to start a business. And obviously, it's dollar signs and new contracts that they can get, and they don't think about that. In the residential world, you have a lot more freedom to either do a weekly billing or, a half, third, based on whatever's going on the project. And you can kind of get ahead of your costs a little bit. You can get ahead of your cash going out with your cash coming in. Whereas in the commercial world, it's often monthly billing and it's for work completed only. And the GC, sometimes, if they're paying attention, will sign you up. Your proposal will say, yeah, a third. And then their client says, I don't care. That's not what I had. That's not the agreement that I have with you. And GCs don't hold money or lay money out early. And then you're in a rock and a hard place, or the GC is in a rock and a hard place. So it's just something that I always like to highlight for people, before they get themselves into something that they don't know what they're signing up for. And I'm not
It
saying
can
that
be
for you, but
scary. Yeah, like I mean the commercial world, down here it's very bizarre because it's like it's either really good or, I've seen companies go down just because they didn't know what to expect and they weren't, they didn't know all the, technicalities about contracts and billing and stuff with these large
Mhm.
jobs. And a lot of this you have to have money set aside to start them. So um it can bring some businesses down or bring them to the next level and it's great. So I just think you have to be prepared, it seems.
Yeah, it's when you talk about having the cash up front, a lot of the time it is that. It's just to be able to manage cash flow, when you don't have it coming in and you still got bills to pay. Now, what's really interesting is, I live in Southwest Florida and my company was very big when I first came down here. I don't work for them anymore, but one of the things that not one of the thing that really sank that GC down here who was doing about 150 million a year is that he wasn't paying the subs. So he was
Really?
doing a lot of work. And what I surmise, I can't say this officially, but they were basically taking money from clients and they were flipping it in short-term investments, and it caught up to them. So
It
there,
always does, it seems like.
yeah, and there was a very well-known name, and I'll tell you afterwards, but it's
Off the
somebody that's
record.
touched a lot of major commercial buildings down here and clubhouses specifically. A lot of people don't know, but like Dunkin' Donuts in the Northeast, there is a golf course and a clubhouse on every corner in Southwest Florida. So it's a big market. Um, but I was in a situation where I was driving on Friday nights to subcontractors to try to get them their checks because he was putting subcontractors out of business to the point where people were warning him, like, dude, somebody's going to kill you. You're ruining people's lives.
That's been so surprising to me because in my experience, with crews, it's just like at least down here, like it's very like it's like common knowledge. Like once the last nail's in the roof, like you have to pay your guys, like, and
Mhm.
they will like hunt you down. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
saying like they'll come and
Yeah.
kidnap you, but like they want their money, So it's interesting that that guy, whoever he is, got away with, not paying them for so long and then they didn't wreak havoc on him. Like,
Yeah, so
I don't
there's
know.
still,
That's
if you
wild.
type in, a lot of people don't know this, but you can type in pretty much anybody's name on public websites and you can find out any kind of lawsuits that are in their name. And there's tens of millions of dollars of lawsuits in their name. But I know, and I just say this because, again, if you just have your eyes on big contracts and dollar signs, potential revenue, and you're not thinking about the cash flow and whether or not they're actually going to pay you on time, it can sink you. I mean, there's a lot of handyman or kind of do it all crews down in Southwest Florida that are, they're just simple people. They keep a short crew. They like showing up and doing their thing, high quality work and going home. But if you put them in a situation where they're waiting months for $60,000, that can ruin them and put them into bankruptcy. Right. So as a general contractor, you have to be aware of that in the situation that you could potentially be putting your people in, because we want our subs to do well. That's our foundation. But then as a subcontractor or a niche contractor, however you want to say it, you got to be mindful of the situation you put yourself in, because you can get ruined pretty quick. Just like you said, a lot of people have gone out of business, that way. So I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you got places to be, but I think you have an incredible story that anybody can learn from, but particularly women. I mean, look at you. You're not even 30, right? You didn't even know that construction was an opportunity for you. You've been able to build a $4 million a year business revenue, which, regardless of the industry, I don't think many people, regardless of their gender, could do before 30 years old. So we need more Hannahs in the industry, promoting the
Oh,
industry. And I'm very glad that you came on the show. I do want to give you an opportunity. I mean, do you have anything that you'd like to address or anything that you'd like to say, whether it's young people in general or women that are thinking about the industry?
I mean, I think honestly, like as a whole, I just like I want women to know, it's okay to, you know, go off the beaten path, do something different that's not necessarily expected of you. I mean, I had a little bit of pressure from my family. Like I know how that is. You have something in mind that you think you're going to do, and it's scary changing paths. But if you take
Mhm.
a leap, you know, most of the time it's worth it. And you'll be really proud of yourself that you did. So, and then just, overcoming things, bad things are always going to happen, especially owning a business. Even early on in high school and stuff, it's not like we get a lot of encouragement to go out and start our own business. So, it's hard to get that support, but I just want women to believe in themselves, even guys starting, when they're young. It's really difficult, but you just have to believe in yourself and keep going. It'll make you better. Each bad thing that happens, and if you overcome it, it'll make you better in the long run. So
where's Hannah going? What's next for Hannah? Is it growing Vogel in volume, in people, other ventures? What's next for you?
I want to grow the roofing company. I used to, my eyes used to be like really big and be like, wow, I want to grow this to the biggest roofing company in Southwest Florida. If that happens, great. If not, I'm really happy where we're at. And I really want to get into like some more philanthropy and maybe starting a nonprofit for girls who maybe aren't going to college or it's not an option and they have an idea or something they're good at and they want to make a business idea, and they don't have maybe the funding or the money on hand to do that. So that's something that I'm really interested in doing in the near future.
That's an amazing point that I want to highlight, because what you do every day doesn't necessarily have to be something that you love, right? Like Hannah doesn't necessarily love putting tiles on roofs. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. I don't know if you're getting any feedback. But plumbers don't necessarily love the way poop and urine smell, right? But if you identify a greater purpose that you'd like to address, that can be an avenue to you doing so, right? So maybe Hannah doesn't love putting tiles on roofs or running a roofing company, but if her greater purpose is to be there for women and be an advocate and a conduit for them starting their own business and bringing them into a life of affluency, then maybe it's worth it, and
exactly.
And it's incredible that you just said that.
Well, and I appreciate that. And I'm so happy that you said that, because growing up, when they always said, like, do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, find your passion. And that's great if people can find that early on and it works. For me, that was not the path. But I did find something unexpected that I could excel at and generate revenue, and grow it. So in order to free up my time, which is way more valuable than money, in my opinion, so I can do those passion projects or things that I do really love and care about. Um, if I made a job into things I love, I don't know if I would make a lot of money. Maybe I would be happier. I don't know, but I'm at a point where I can like pursue other things that make me incredibly happy and to help people. So I encourage people, like, if you're talented at something, maybe you don't necessarily like it, like give it a chance. Maybe you'll start to like it or find something about it you like. I mean, with the roofing, I love the marketing aspect of it. I love talking to clients and being out in the community. So no, I'm not passionate about roofing, but there's aspects that I've become passionate about.
Yeah, and I think a lot of motivational speakers or athletes or things that people that do cool and fun things and make absurd amounts of money to do them, and it's like, yeah, okay, I understand that Tom Brady put in a lot of hard work to be Tom Brady, right? But that's not most people. And yeah, okay, that's great that he gets to love football. But there's so many opportunities out there and things that you wouldn't necessarily expect. And it's what they allow you to do, what they enable you to do or empower you to do. That's where the love comes in. And that's great. So, I mean, and it's just another way. I know I already said it, but again, we need more Hannahs in the world. And we need as many in the construction industry as we can get, because construction industry needs help. It's a dying industry and not a lot of people are coming in. More people are leaving than coming in. And I think that's the clip. That's how you found me, was 7 for every 7 people that are on their way out, only 1 comes in.
Yes, it's terrifying, honestly. And people don't really think about it, long term, the effects of those statistics. So,
opportunity.
I'm trying to get not only women, but anyone, like, come on board.
Yeah, there's a tremendous supply and demand, right? Demand isn't going away. We're always going to need roofs to be replaced, serviced, and any new structure that goes up is going to, believe it or not, it's going to need a roof. Okay, so this is a first. I have never ended a podcast and then said, hey, this is so important, we got to jump back in. So here we are. Now, what I was sharing with Hannah is that my aunt is a roofer. And what my cousin, who's younger than me, she's mid-20s, shared with me recently was that she was embarrassed that her mother was a roofer when she was younger. Now, she realizes her mom's a total badass running a business in a man's world, quote, man's world. And then, it's just funny that, I have Hannah on here and here she is, a badass in her own right, a woman running a roofing company.
Yeah. So, and it's funny because I kind of added to that. There's still that stigma in construction, I feel like, with contractors and things like that. And I was just explaining a funny story with my brother changing career fields, and he's opening a plumbing company. And I think some people in the family, there were some comments like, oh, he's going to be a plumber. Like, I can't believe, like, is he doing okay?
Yeah.
And people in the trades, like you and I, it's so funny. And we laugh because, plumbers are one of the top earning trades companies. So it's just, it's funny that there's still like that stigma.
Yeah, because nobody wants to do it, right? Like, I mean, roofers have a stigma of not being the healthiest of people, right? A lot of alcoholics and drug abuse. I mean, that's in a lot of people in construction entirely, which is a different conversation. But it's funny, like, your family looked down on you, not down, but they're like, huh, what are you doing? Like going into roofing? Like, are you okay? And then your brother goes in and he wants to, was it your brother or brother-in-law?
Brother. My
Your
sister-in-law.
brother, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then your brother wants to become a plumber and own a plumbing company, which I tell people all the time, like if you're going to start any company in construction, plumbing's the one for that reason.
Oh, yeah.
And so what's the stigma like now? I mean, does your family understand with roofers and plumbers in the like, do they understand like what the opportunity is?
That's the thing. And I don't think it's like, I don't want to say it's like bad, or it's more like funny now because like a lot of people don't understand until they see or have proof that it's lucrative. Mm-hmm. And then their minds are blown and then they're like, yeah, this is awesome. But when you're like grinding in the beginning and stuff, there's still like that stigma where they're like, ooh, like a contractor, you're gonna be a contractor or a plumber or a roofer, So it's just like interesting. Even like do you know where FGCU is? Florida Gulf Coast University?
Yeah, I could if I had a swamp buggy, I could be on there in 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you're super close. So that I went to college there and I've been there to visit like their construction management programs and things like that. And all the kids are just so fixated on like new construction. They all want to be GCs. Like all the other trades, they're just kind of like, oh, whatever. And a roofer came in before me and he was actually talking about the numbers and how his revenue charts and everything like that. And by the end of the class, they were like, do we have a roofing program? How do we get into roofing? So,
well, it's funny because there's riches and the niches. So number one, like if your family was sitting around 10 Thanksgivings ago and it was like, hey, in 10 years from now, Hannah's going to own her own company and they're going to do 4 million in revenue a year. Say, oh, wow, Hannah's doing really good. Like Hannah's got a future. She's got it going on before she's even 30 years old. Right. But then they hear roofer and it's like a bad thing. And then for people that are even interested in the industry who are at FGCU or whatever college in a construction management deal, a lot of them look down on the sub trades, right? First, they look down on renovation work, right? They don't understand. I have an episode where I went through, and maybe I should repost the post, but the advantages of renovation and service work, right? There's a ton of advantages there. But to your point, subcontracting world is something that they almost look down on. And what a lot of people don't realize, riches in the niches, right? Like the subcontractor world has way higher profitability percentages than the GC world. Most people are shocked when they find out what GCs make. Do you have any idea of what a GC makes profit wise?
Oh, it's insane. Not exactly, but I know it's a lot more than I do.
Well, no. So my margin on my projects, like for most large construction projects, is 2 to 3%.
Oh, you're saying with like your big projects. Yeah. Oh, yeah. People don't get that at all. It's insane.
Right. And
Your
whereas like
profit
I have
margins are so much lower.
so much lower,
Yeah.
whereas, I have a guy that lives in my neighborhood up the street, HVAC contractor, averaging 47% margin
That is
last year.
wild.
Right. So just think about that. So to make $2 million in profit, I'd have to do $100 million of work. That's a ton of work as a GC. For him to make $2 million, he'd have to do what, 6 million? No, 4 million in revenue, right? So like, there's no reason to look down on the trades. So again, $100 million of work for a GC is a massive risk, a massive workload, a massive bandwidth suck to make $2 million, right? Whereas a subcontractor could do $4 million of work and make almost $2 million and be in and out, much quicker with lower risk and just quicker turnover and hyper focused on one niche. Right now, I don't know.
Liability, everything. And way less overhead than you guys have to deal with. That's another thing too that I learned when I started reading about. Another thing, I could talk about this all day, but another thing of advice that really helped me is reading books on like contracting and handling finances and things like that, because I really I thought I knew how to do it in the beginning, and it was basic, but it's not. Like, you really need to stop looking at revenue and start looking at profit margins, because when you say like, oh, I want to do $10 million a year and stuff, I'm like, what are your profit margins though? Like we were just talking about. Right. A lot of people don't look at that. And I had a couple months a year or so ago where I was like, oh my God, like our profit margins are way down, but we're doing this much in revenue, but we're only netting, this amount. And it, like you said, it's a lot of work, a lot of liability, to only net, like you said, a few percent.
Now, what's funny, I had one of my first subcontractor on this episode. I'm sure you've seen the trucks around Southwest Florida, was Wildcat Demo.
Oh, yeah.
So they're everywhere, right? Here, Al Miller is awesome guy. If you haven't met him, good guy to know in town. Super inspirational story. He was homeless at 18. Now he's doing $20 million a year as Wildcat Demo.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so he's crushing it. Just a great guy.
Yeah,
and I was talking to him, and I'm like, people look down on demo guys as like the toothless idiots of construction. I'm like, wait a minute. First guy in, first guy out. Usually they get the cash flow and they get to close out their jobs earlier and get their retention back. No warranty. Like, no one's bringing trash back to the job site, right? I mean, unless he rips something out that he's not supposed to rip, his risk is pretty low. You know what I mean? So like, his cash flow is there, doesn't have to warranty anything. His risk is relatively low. And, he doesn't buy any new materials or anything like that, right? Like, he's not putting out huge deposits for materials or anything like that. So his cash flow risk is even pretty low. It's pretty much on manpower only, which is, it's enough, right? And I'm looking at him and I'm like, you're onto something here. Like, why aren't more people trying to start demo companies? And he kind of looked back at me and was like, don't get any fucking ideas, dude. This is my business and this is my world. Like, you know what I mean?
Secret sauce. No, it's totally slept on. And another thing, those guys can scale so much easier, and I feel like faster than roofers or like GCs. I feel like they could scale a really nice business because of the no warranty, not as much liability. They're in and out. It's fast.
The education level required for one of his guys to do something, right? Like, you need to teach somebody roofing, because if they fuck it up, you're going to know pretty quick when the next big rainstorm comes.
And it's usually expensive.
Whereas demo, obviously, guy takes the wrong, it's like Jenga, right? Like, the whole freaking building falls down. Like, you don't want that. But a significant amount of his labor force is relatively uneducated compared to other trades, right? Now his guys are great, and there isn't a demo contractor in Southwest Florida that I would trust more than Wildcat Demo, like 100% on board with him, and he pays his guys really well too. His full-time journeymen are making great money. I forget what the quote was in the episode, but they're making like $30 or more an hour, right? Which
That's
for
awesome.
an relatively unskilled trade, that's pretty damn good. But you already said you got to pay people really well to keep them around, right? So it just goes. I don't want to go like we could talk about this all day, and we can't because we have jobs to do. But people look down on the subcontracting world, and they shouldn't, because it's a great opportunity to own your own business at a high profit margin, which is what we all should want, right?
So, and even like I feel like the more white collar folks are starting to catch on, and they're starting to buy out these small mom and pop companies because they're like, look at this cash flow. I mean, when the cash flow is good, it's amazing. So I think people are kind of starting to catch on a little bit.
Have you heard of Codie Sanchez? Do you know who she is?
Who's that?
Go look at Codie Sanchez. She was like a Goldman Sachs rep for a long time. Whatever she did, some finance at Goldman Sachs, right? But she's become famous, like Instagram famous, as a person in the entrepreneurship world, and she's buying a lot of contracting companies. And she's a total badass. Like you'd really like her content. I really like her content a lot.
Oh, I love that.
But she talks
Codie
about that
Sanchez.
a lot. And Grant Cardone talks about that a lot. I don't know if you know who he is, but
yeah, I love him.
So he buys HVAC companies, and I actually have my HVAC license in Southwest Florida. In Florida, I'm an unrestricted mechanical contractor.
Oh, sweet! That's a good gig.
I just don't use it. It's kind of my
really?
fallback because I'm doing really well in my day job, but I have toyed with the idea of, I have an LLC, and I could bid a $200 million mechanical contracting job right now if I wanted to. I could. But
that's awesome.
I haven't done anything with it, so I don't know. Maybe it's just like a one day. Maybe I might explore it. We'll see.
Well, it's hard too, because it sounds like you're so good at what you're doing right now, and I feel like you're doing it the right way. I mean, because a lot of these business books and stuff I read and other entrepreneurs tell me, like, one of the biggest mistakes is like you start making money in the one thing you're good at, and then you're like, ooh, piece of candy, let me get my license for this, and like, you don't perfect your craft. So it sounds like you're making the right move by just focusing on what's doing well for you right now.
Yeah, as a GC, so I'm an entrepreneur, right? Not an entrepreneur. And I'm in the top, I think 2 or 3% of wage earners in the country. And I'm in the top 1% in our age bracket. And like, I'm only 33. So it's going to keep going from here. It's like, all right, well, why wouldn't I ride that trajectory? I have that as a fallback, and maybe I use it, maybe I don't. We'll see. But my original plan was to be an HVAC contractor. So, and that was what my background was in. So I just got the license because I could, but we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
That's just wild when you talk about like the numbers of like when you own a business and how you do, and you're like, I'm like, for my age or like what we're doing, we're like technically like top earners.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but like it doesn't feel like that for me. Like I would never consider myself like doing what like really well financially.
Well, especially if you drive around Naples. It's a long way to go to get into some of those neighborhoods, right?
You get humbled pretty fast. But also I think it helps being in the trades, because most people are like super down to earth, and they're just like hard working people who want to like have a good life for themselves, So I think that helps to keep, keeping people humble.
Yeah. And it's funny because like I just thought about, as I was saying those profit margins out loud, and I'm like, 47% doesn't sound bad to me. Like I could run $4 million of mechanical work real quick if I was making 47% and probably have less stress than I have right now. Maybe I should jump into it. The only way that I could see myself right now leaving my current situation, because I'm at such a big company, is if politics got in the way. Like if my personal values got challenged in big corporate America, I could see that's the only way that I could see me being pushed out of my current position, because I am selling, right? But it's something that I've thought about. You know what I mean? Like I don't take politics to work, but in the world that we live in today, and I know you obviously have a passion for politics. If somebody tried to force something on me, that's the only way that I could see me saying, all right, guess what? Patriot Mechanical LLC is coming in. and maybe that gives you a little insight to the way that I feel about the world. But and that is the name of my LLC. If you ever want to use it, if you ever need a license for mechanical stuff, Hannah, just reach out. But but
Awesome.
that I think that speaks to the freedom that the industry gives you. I can do that, right? And without a doubt, I could lose my job tomorrow and start making money somewhere else. Food's always going to be on the table for me because of the skill set that I have in this industry, and the same for you. So
exactly, we can always pivot as needed.
Yeah. So, Hannah, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you taking the time. Very profound episode that I think a lot of people can learn from. And again, kudos to you for being the person you are at such a young age.
Thank you.
You're somebody that a lot of people can look up to. And I hope this reaches all the right people. I'm sure it will. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And thanks for having such a good podcast and educating people. So we need more of you too.
I appreciate that. So again, you can find me at the Construction Mentor on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. And Hannah, can people go find you on Instagram? If they need any advice, can they reach out?
Yep, you can reach out to my personal page, or we have a Vogel Roofing Instagram and TikTok, and then our website is vogelroofing.southwestflorida.com.
Awesome, and I'll make sure I tag her and everything that I put out. So I will catch you guys next time. And again, thanks for coming on.